Just doing a bit of harvesting in the garden. Some nice tatties that I've just got from this year. Planted them about March, I think, these. So they've not had that long in, but some nice new potatoes there. That's about 6 bags. I find the easiest way of growing potatoes is in rubble sacks. I know people plant them in the garden and stuff, but it's a load of messing about, and when you come to harvesting you end up forking half of them. So I use these like so. Just an old rubble sack you can get from DIY stores. Put a few holes in it, plant them up, then fill up with the compost and whatever as you go along. Usually fill them about 1/3 at first, and then just keep making it up as and when the plant grows, because you need to earth them up, otherwise you get the dreaded greenbacks potatoes, which are make you poorly if you eat them. So it's always worth making sure you haven't got those. These are rubble sacks, just common garden sack from the local DIY store. No problem there. Nice empty beds now, because I've just harvested my onions, and here they are drying out in the sun. I'll probably leave them there for a day or two, just to dry out and all the soil falls off. You can then tie the tops up and put them away in a dry place, in a box or something, on some newspaper to keep them nice and dry, and they'll keep for months and months and months. I've got some small ones here that haven't probably bulbed up yet, but they've gone to seed, so they needed harvesting. Now I can actually use them, what they call as wet onions. In other words, you've just dug them up, and they're perfectly acceptable. You can use them for anything, and they tend to be sweeter. They're not as sour or as sharp as onions that have been dried, so you can use them for cooking and stuff like that. They usually end up with a bulb that's not too big, like that one for instance, because it's not a huge onion, but you can leave them for a few days and it'll dry out, and then we can just use it straight away for cooking. But these here, the bigger ones, I'll put those into storage to use over the winter. Sometimes I've had them so that by the time they've run out, I've already got a new crop coming through the following summer. So in theory you can eat fresh onions, or onions you've grown yourself, all year round just about. Maybe a couple of months where you can't get them, you have to buy them from the shops, but quite often you can do this all year round and just grow your own. And contrary to what they tell you on Gardener's World and other programs on TV, you don't need to spend, well, firstly you don't need to have an enormous garden, and secondly you don't have to spend a fortune on greenhouses and stuff like that. You can grow stuff in a relatively small garden. Even if you've just got a courtyard, you can grow stuff. Here's my runner beans. They're doing all right now. Got off to a slow start because the weather wasn't too good. Got one courgette here. Unfortunately, I planted about half a dozen of those, and the weather turned really nasty, and I'm afraid they fell over, died a death. But this one just survived. Got some leeks in here now. I've just bedded them out. They should be okay in a month or two. Strawberries haven't done too well this year because it's not had enough sun, but they're starting to come back now. Normally by now they'd be filling those little plastic boxes. Again, I found it easier to use them in plastic boxes because you can really, strawberries, they need replanting in fresh compost about every couple of years, 3 years, but I tend to do them every year, to be honest, because they tend to do better doing it that way. Obviously you've got to have some netting to keep the birds off. I built this last autumn, just a little frame there that I've put a bit of netting on so that the birds don't go in and start eating my strawberries. I did this bed at the same time as well. That's a new bed for this year. I've only just used it this year. But yeah, everything else seems to be doing all right now. But it's been a very poor season this year. All the people I'm talking to are telling me the same story. That the wet weather and the cold weather earlier on this year have took something of a toll on everything. But as is always the case, Mother Nature always catches up again at some point. So, yeah, not massively pleased with what's happened, but not disappointed either. My granddad always used to say, and he knew more about gardening than I'll ever know. You know, he used to say to me, Dan, he says, because they always called me Dan. Dan, he says, whatever you do in a garden, Mother Nature always has the last word. And I think the old granddad were right. See you later.